smart farm management, digital magazine, farm food, which is an online farm equipment online shop. So we are working with a lot of Zimbabwe farmers, and they are facing their major challenge is on market, and some are producing very well and they want to export, but they know how it's being done, that is the challenge. So we are here to be part of this webinar meeting so that our emerging farmers can learn one or two things. So, yeah.
Thank you for that, Anis. Before we move into our discussion, I know a lot of farmers that have joined us, a lot of farmers in the making that have joined us. We have a lot of questions to ask. May I request everyone that will open a question and answer section towards the end of this webinar, which should be the last 30 minutes of the segment. For now, everyone, please mute your microphone, and then we'll allow you to speak during the Q&A segment. But for now, understood the platform is yours. The farmers are eager to learn. They want to know where can they sell their flowers, where can they sell their fruits. After all, this after my euro at the moment. What you should get.
Yeah, okay. So in this webinar meeting, we are going to discuss all of that. I understand we have Mr. Papashe from Zimtrade. We are very, very, very grateful to have Mr. Papashe because Zimtrade, that's where we can get the knowledge of how the horticulture export is being done. So I'm going to ask my first question to Mr. Papashe on the role of Zimtrade in the horticultural industry. Over to you, Mr. Papashe.
Thanks, Anisu. So I don't know if most of our colleagues or clients who are with us today are actually aware of the role that Zimtrade plays, not just in exports, but in general. But basically, Zimtrade, we are the National Trade Promotion Organization with the mandate of promoting, or as we like to call it, to energize Zimbabwe's export growth. So we're basically a partnership between government and private sector. And like I said, our role is to promote Zimbabwe's exports. And how we as Zimtrade try to achieve that, we are guided. Our parent ministry in terms of the government side is the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Trade. And as some of you may be aware, there was a recently launched national export strategy and national trade policy, and basically that has since set targets for Zimbabwe's exports by 2023, where what we are calling it the 714, 7 being a target of 7 billion exports by 2023 and 14 billion by 2030. So what that means compared to our current exports, that translates to a growth of over 50%. That's what our target looks like. I thought I should share this information because I believe agriculture, even as Zimtrade, we believe agriculture is one of the key sectors that will or should contribute to these targets. And what Zimtrade does and how we try to achieve these targets, our main service portfolio is divided into 4 major aspects. The first one being market intelligence. Basically, here we provide farmers or would-be exporters with information about different markets. What is on demand where, in which country? What are the requirements for one to access that market? And then we also do what we call export development. This is where we have various capacity building programs and technical intervention programs where, again, we now want to assist would-be farmers or would-be exporters to assist them to be export ready, because we believe that exports, we talk a lot about exports, but there's a lot that goes into it until someone is ready to target the export markets. Is your management ready for what it takes, or even your mindset? Do you have what it takes? You don't just wake up one morning and decide I want to dynamics that come into play. Then we also do what we call export promotion. Unfortunately, because of COVID, I think that's one of our services that has been affected greatly. Here, what we will do is we then take farmers or take producers out to the market to meet the market. This is by means of attending various trade fairs, be they in the region, and particularly for agriculture, we target European markets for horticulture, because that's one of our major markets. So we would then attend I think the major market is Food Logistica, which is a fruit and vegetable fair in Europe. So we would then attend those fairs and bring the producers or the farmers closer to the market. And then the last one, we do advocacy, lobbying and advocacy work. Basically, if any farmers or any producers face any challenges, be they regulatory or compliance issues, we also have a role to play in assisting farmers or producers so that we can smoothen and ease their doing business environment. I think in not so many words, that's what I can say about Zimtrade.
That's interesting, say. So you've talked about the requirements. Can you shed more light on the requirements that farmers need to have for their products to be exported? Because we usually got those questions when we do with farmers. They will say, okay, I want to export my peas. I want to export my horticultural products. What am I supposed to do as a farmer? Can you unpick that, farmer?
All right. Thanks again, Anisu. I don't know, maybe before I get into it, bless more, I'm trying to see if I can share my screen, but I'm facing challenges with that. It's saying that host has disabled screen sharing. But I think while that's being sorted out, I can be speaking to the requirements. So basically, right, I'll start off with local requirements. When you want to get into exports, you know, as Zimbabwe, we have various aspects that we are required to comply with for us to be able to even take our produce across the border. So basically each shipment is supposed to be accompanied by a complete set of documentation, and this is irrespective of consignment size. Well, now, what documentation am I talking about? You have documents like an agro-dealer certificate. I think that's the first point of call. As a farmer, you need to be certified by the Agricultural Marketing Authority, be it you're either an agro-dealer or an agro-producer. So how you get this certificate, you need to pay an annual registration fee. When you're an agro-dealer, the last time we checked, this was about 2,500 Zimbabwean dollars, and it was $20 for an agro-producer. But I think if I may add a caveat to that, as you're aware, Zimbabwe, we are quite volatile at the moment, so these prices, by the time you walk into AMA 30 minutes from now, these might have changed. But basically, that's the first point of call. You need to have complied with AMA, Agricultural Marketing Authority. And then over and above that, you need what is called a phytosanitary certificate. This is basically a health certificate which basically proves that your produce is ready for human consumption. I think if I may take it home a little bit, I understand some of us might have gardens in our backyards. You know, when you spray chemicals on my veg, you know, you have to give a certain timeline, a time period before you can actually consume that. So by the same argument, basically what this certificate does is it just checks if there are any residues or any chemicals that are in your produce, and have you complied with the timelines after which, well, from the time that you sprayed your produce up to the time that you want to export, is it fit for human consumption? And that is obtained from the Plant Quarantine Research Institute, and they have two main offices, one in Mazoe and the other one at the airport. And the fee for this certificate is 25 Zimbabwean dollars. And then over and above that, you also need to comply with the requirement of the Ministry of Lands, Agriculture and Rural Settlement. Basically, they require you to have an export permit, and this is issued for a specific quantity and time period. Basically, their argument is they want to understand what is being exported, what is being exported out of Zimbabwe. So for that to happen, and last time we checked, I think that permit was about 30 Zimbabwean dollars. And this export permit is also required by the plant health inspectors at the export points, as well as ZIMRA. So if you don't have that permit, if you don't have the AMA certificate, you won't be able to cross the border unless you're doing smuggling. And then the other documentation, this will include, say, your bill of lading, your CD1 forms. But I think some of this information, if you then speak to your agent, your clearing agent, or your bank, say, for example, particularly for the CD1 form, bank, where we're happy to have Bank ABC on the platform, they will be able to assist with that. I think that's the basic requirements in terms of Zimbabwean requirements. And then depending on your market, obviously the most important documentation that you need, whether you're exporting to Botswana, to Malawi, or even to Europe, one important documentation that you need is an import permit from the respective country that you're exporting to. You might comply with everything from a Zimbabwean point of view, but if you don't comply with the requirements as well from your market, and like I mentioned, the one major important document is for you to have an import permit from that country that you're exporting to.
Okay, thank you. Maybe still on those requirements, seen kuti pane certificates akanodiwa, there's a lot of requirements needed. So maybe some of our small scale farmers, they might not be able to get that. So is it possible if maybe vakaita munhu one ane those requirements, and then vorimira that person, they give the product to that person, and that person exports? Can you tell us what is it possible?
Okay, so with smallholder farmers, and I think that's a very, very important and very valid question, and I was going to touch on that as well when we get to some of the requirements, particularly for the European market. But even as you're asking for the local market, what other farmers then do, they either create a company, sort of like a holding company, wherein they are all shareholders, or it could be as well even a cooperative, and they become party to or members of that cooperative. So when it now comes to these certifications and these requirements, it then becomes the cooperative or the company that then applies for these. And like you're saying, then all these smallholders farmers basically produce together and feed into this a larger body, and then when it comes to exporting, you can export as a group. But I think I'm still not able to share my screen. I was hoping to then be able to share a video. As I mentioned, I think the other important aspect when you're one of the major markets for horticulture produce at the moment is Europe. And I think a lot of our farmers right now, when they are looking for or looking to get into horticulture produce, they're looking to export. And I think the word has gone around a lot now that our fruits and vegetables to Europe. And now when it comes to Europe, there's one important certification that it's a voluntary certification, but unfortunately it has indirectly become regulatory or a requirement. So you at Kwanise kuendesa my exports to Europe if you're not Global Gap certified. So it's called Global Gap, and basically what it means is the GAP stands for Good Agricultural Practice. And as I mentioned, it's a voluntary certification standard that most European buyers will insist on before they can take our produce. And basically why they insist on that, they basically just want reassurance for my consumers. How are we producing our foods? And are we also minimizing any detrimental impacts to the environment based on our farming operations? We they also want us to reduce the use of chemicals, and also to ensure that we're responsible when we're dealing with our workers' health and safety, as well as animal welfare. So it covers different aspects. But when you're like I mentioned, when you're targeting the European market, it becomes a different dynamic. And basically, when you're talking about the European market, they also have what they call an option 2 for group certification, and it covers that aspect where you can come together as a group and be certified. Maybe what I can try do, I don't know if maybe I can try play for a couple of seconds an audio. It was a video, but I can try play the audio and see if it's audible enough. If not, then I can just speak to what the video was basically saying.
Today, certification from producers. Today, more and more markets demand certification from producers. This, however, can be a challenge for some producers. Smallholder producers, for example, might find it difficult due to a lack of sufficient resources, technical expertise, and funds. Also, they compete with commercial producers in terms of volume of product and market access. Larger individual producers, on the other hand, are also striving to establish a stronger marketing strategy, and high input costs is also a concern for them. A possible solution for producers is the Global Gap Option 2 Producer Group Certification. At present, more than 2/3 of the Global Gap certified producers are organized in producer groups, and this option has successfully been used for already more than 10 years. Producers, small or large, form a producer group, whereby they jointly sell their products to defined markets. In terms of Global Gap, Option 2 Producer Group Certification refers to the QMS. The QMS will, in short, cover, among others, topics such as documentation, internal QMS audit and internal producer inspections, non-compliances, corrective actions, and sanctions, product traceability and segregation. The implementation of a QMS is obligatory and a key element in group certification. The QMS ensures consistency and improvement of working practices, which in turn provide products and services that meet customers' requirements. The group of producers must have an internal procedure where 100% of the registered members are internally inspected according to the Global Gap requirements, and a management representative with ultimate responsibility. The role of the certification body is not to determine the compliance of each producer in the group, but rather to assess whether the group's internal controls are appropriate. As certain activities are managed centrally, the inspection time on farm level is shorter, and this can save on the certification costs. A Global Gap approved certification body will conduct an announced audit of the QMS and select and inspect on short notice and at random the square root of the total number of producers that are included in this group. 10% of producer groups shall also be selected for an unannounced audit. Each producer member of a group receives its own Global Gap number, GGN, but only one certificate is issued per group after a successful external audit of the QMS and random sample inspections of the producers by a Global Gap approved certification body. The members of the group are included in the annex of the Global Gap certificate. Group certification aims to reduce non-conformances to food safety and quality issues and customers' expectations in the most cost-effective and efficient manner. Benefits for producers include save time and money, improve customer satisfaction, better quality products.
I think the video is about to end, but
aims to reduce non-conformances to food safety and quality issues and customers' expectations in the most cost-effective and efficient manner. Benefits for producers include save time and money, improve customer satisfaction, better quality products, improve internal internal process. Create easier access to markets. Global Gap Option 2 certification, when appropriately managed, is a strong and robust system and is accepted by a large number of buyers globally. When overall compared with individual certification, it is a more cost-effective solution, especially due to the effective sampling formula. Our certification integrity program also ensures that the internal and sampling processes are correctly implemented, making it a trustworthy system. For more information about Option 2, please contact Global Gap at info@globalgap.org.
Thank you, Mr. Okwashe. I think everyone can, you can share the link to the video so that everyone has this. Okay. Okay. So I'm happy that Mr. Charles is now with us. So Mr. Charles is a banker by training, and also he manages agribusiness portfolios at Bank ABC. He deals with small and medium enterprise farmers. So I would like to ask Mr. Charles, we've been talking about exporting, but maybe certain that level, do we have local markets that our horticulture farmers can maybe sell their products currently right now in this farm?
Good day, everyone. Okay, it's Charles Makonye. I'm with SMSM Banking. Yeah, we do have markets locally, and these are formal markets as well as informal markets. For the formal markets, we do have our wholesalers, the retailers, as well as the usual shops in the country. And for the informal markets, we do have the famous Mbari and supermarkets. So I think that's what I can say at the moment on the markets, on the local markets.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So let's since you work with the bank, maybe our farmers would like to know if there are funding options for them. Because like Mr. Pavashi was saying, the requirements maybe they law of financial background. So maybe our farmers would like to know if there are any funding options for them to venture into this horticulture export.
Certainly, we do have funding for the farmers. And in fact, historically, the banks have been blamed for various reasons, especially that we are not assisting farmers in their projects. But that is not the case, especially if you look on the value chain financing part of it. Because we don't just start with the farmer, we start with the supplier of inputs. And from the supplier of inputs, we now come to the farmer where the production process takes place. And from there, we have the transporters and also sometimes even those with the storage facilities. And then we go to the wholesalers or the off-taker of the product. So we see, depending on the scale of production, we see where we can fit in to assist the processes of production. So we may come in at this initial stage of where we can assist the input supplier to produce the necessary inputs, which can be in the form of chemicals, fertilizers, or even quality seed. So we can then go to that side, assist the producer of the inputs to come up with quality seed, to come up with quality fertilizer, fertilizers, to come up with quality material so that our farmers can then go to the field and then produce quality product. And sometimes, depending on the scale, when it comes to the farmer himself, depending on the scale, if it's medium scale to large commercial farming, we can then assist that particular individual farmer because of the scale. As you have realized that when it becomes small or it becomes sort of fragmented, it becomes a bit difficult to assist them, such that we now deal with large numbers. So we then encourage these to come and form an association or a cooperative which can be registered, as Kupa indicated earlier on, when it comes to marketing or exporting. So we can then finance them that way. And in most cases, what most farmers are not aware of, on the contract farming sometimes, we then have contractors coming to the bank for financing, and then we give them the money, and then that money is then disbursed to various individual farmers. So that way, we have the indirect way of assisting the farmers through contract funding. So that is through financing the off-taker. So we can supply, we have got 3 or even more modes of financing to the farmer. The first one is the supply side. We then to go to the individual farmers depending on the scale, and then we can have the contracting aspect of that. And even in some cases, we then finance or we even discount invoices of these particular farmers when they want their money urgently. So generally, we are open for production on the horticultural side or even on the farming side. I think in a nutshell, that's what I can say. We assist farmers, but sometimes it's not perceptible because it comes in different ways. It's sometimes direct, it's sometimes indirect.
Okay, thank you for that. Noted that you talked about, you emphasized more on that farmers should produce quality product. So maybe one of you can tell our farmers on the key crop management skills that farmers need to have so that they can produce this the best quality suitable for exporting. And also, when we are talking of this exporting, maybe our farmers would also want to know this. Are we only talking about fresh produce or also maybe dried produce? So maybe you can clarify on that. But first, you can clarify on the crop management skills that the farmers can get.
Okay. Well, I can try to assist on that one, but the best person will be an agronomist. So I would advise farmers to always be or to consult their nearest agronomist. If it's contract farming, normally the contractor gives the extension services to the farmers because they want a certain product to come the way they want it. But generally, I can say it starts with the quality seed or quality inputs. And then from there, you can then go to the proper agronomic practices, which include weeding, that is the cropping side, where you need a weed-free field, and you also need to know how to control diseases and pests. And it doesn't end there. And when it comes to harvesting, you need to know proper harvesting practices, and then storage, and sometimes even grading. So all that is involved. It's a lot of activities which are involved, and it actually requires one to be knowledgeable in this area, because horticulture is unlike growing maize. It's sort of specialized, and in most cases, it's capital intensive. It requires a lot of inputs. It requires special types of fertilizers, and even sometimes special types of disease and pest control chemicals, such that one needs to have an idea of what he's doing. If not, maybe you need to consult or to employ someone with the requisite experience and technical ability. I think that's what I can say for now.
Yeah, so the best thing is always to work with the local agronomist or the agriculture officers so that they can get the assistance. And also for companies like our own company farmers, we also have agronomists that help farm management so that our farmers can produce high quality products. So back to Mr. Mitzi, I'd like to ask you on the sustainability of horticulture industry in Zimbabwe. Can one really earn a living doing this horticulture industry?
Help me respond to that. Allow me to take time to also then share a bit information on the markets that are available out there for Zimbabwean agricultural produce, because I think that will help make it clear to our farmers that it is sustainable. If you do it right, you can actually make a living out of agriculture. Just to share some information, in 2019, the horticulture sector alone, in terms of export, was about $63 million worth of exports in the horticulture project. And when I say horticulture, normally that is, I think your question is on general agriculture. But horticulture, we're looking at specialized crops, specialized produce. This is excluding your traditional crops, your maize, your potatoes, your seeds, your seed crops as well. So just the horticulture sector alone we exported about $63 billion worth. And well, some of our farmers might be keen to know where did this produce go, or where can I, if I then decide to start looking for markets, which areas should I target? So in terms of, I think there's two ways to look at horticulture exports. You can try and focus on the region. When I say the region, your SADC or COMESA or within at west within Africa. Basically, in terms of some of the countries, well, like basically all the countries in SADC region, produce. I think the only differential would be a question of how much is demanded, when, and at what time. And as Zimtrade, what we are also trying to do is we're engaging our counterparts in the countries that surround us to understand where the gaps are. And I can share with you at this point that we have successfully managed to engage Namibia, and they have since shared